What's going on, my fellow A-Plusers? Welcome back once again to a brand new episode. It is I, your host, as always, Adam Perez, certainly coming through as we've got ourselves a brand new Supergirl review that we're going to be getting into with you guys today, as we did get ourselves a brand new episode this past Tuesday for us to go ahead and sink our teeth into, ladies and gentlemen, as this is, in fact, the final season of Supergirls. We're going to be wrapping up the 6th season this year. We've got ourselves a few brand new episodes here before Superman and Lois actually does return. So Supergirl will be taking a little bit of a hiatus beginning in May. But as of right now, we do have ourselves some great new episodes to certainly get into. And I got to say, I've been really impressed with how this this 6th season certainly has started off for us a little bit. You know, I was kind of expecting that maybe by this time, Supergirl would probably be back from the Phantom Zone. But the fact that they're actually taking their time to tell the story that they certainly want to tell, they're not rushing anything whatsoever. I feel like you would think with this being the 6th and final season, they would want her around majority of the cast and the crew and things like that, like a farewell tour, if you will, for Kara Danvers and Supergirl. But the showrunners definitely have stuck to their guns in regards to the storyline for her. So the fact that she's been trapped inside the Phantom Zone for what, 2 episodes now, about to go on her third episode next week. I've really been enjoying the pacing that they've had for us, certainly so far, and just the idea of her being able to reconnect with her father and really just see what the team is dealing with without her around, right? So first and foremost, guys, I love the title of this episode, Phantom Menaces. I'm a huge Star Wars fan, so the fact that they were able to go ahead and throw in a Star Wars reference for this title seemed quite fitting, honestly. But one of the things out of this episode that I found really that stood out to me was really how everybody's dealing with Supergirl no longer being around, right? Everybody clearly does grieve differently, but one of the things that I loved was just showcasing not only Alex, who we get to see is watching the last will and testament, if you will, of Supergirl, which we saw her filming or at least recording, if I'm not mistaken, I believe in the premiere episode this year. Alex very much was not going to go ahead and read it because she was under the impression she was going to get Kara back relatively quickly, and unfortunately that didn't happen. So we clearly see Alex kind of accepting the fact that her sister is now gone, may not be able to ever see her again, sort of thing. So it was definitely in a process of grieving here, and we get to see exactly how she's handling that, especially somebody like a John Jones, who's been very close with Kara, looks at her as a daughter, and is still trying to figure out how he should manage his feelings, right? We even saw him and Magan last week kind of talking about this, the way that he was handling it and things like that, and now he's kind of decided to handle it a little bit more like a soldier. But we clearly see that maybe some of his orders that he's trying to give Magan certainly don't go over really well with her. She tries to do whatever she wants to, and unfortunately it puts Magan in a really terrible situation here, really life and death, and it's really up to John to kind of have to save her. But you clearly see just some of the doubt that kind of creeps up into his mind, the idea that the grief is really making him kind of make these bad decisions along the way, or he's not fully thinking things through that he certainly used to, right? So really interesting stuff just to see how our group winds up handling the idea of Kara certainly not being there, because it does in fact get brought up by Alex, by John himself also. And one person that really tends to really be suffering a lot from the loss of Kara is in fact Brainiac. I truly loved all the stuff that we wind up getting between Lena and Brainiac in here. You know, I wasn't quite sure how I would feel about Lena being a part of the team when I read that the showrunner was going to kind of include her a lot more in the tower, working alongside her Supergirl and her Superfriends and things like that. Wasn't quite sure how I was feeling about it based off of how we wind up leaving Lena in last season, to say the least. But seeing how things have kind of turned around within 3 episodes this season, I'm actually really loving her inclusion, and I really love how she works off of everybody else. Like, for me, it feels like this was the missing piece of the puzzle for Lena, that she has friends in her life now that rely on her and that she can certainly rely on also, and it's really making her make some interesting decisions in here. I mean, we clearly get the opportunity to see her wanting to get some vengeance and get some payback to Lex Luthor that even Brainiac is like, yes, tag team partner, let's do this, right? Wanting to go ahead and take him down, helping him out in regards to helping Lena out in regards to taking some of Lex Luthor's funds and transferring it from the business into the animal hospital, into the children hospital, to say the least. And then the crazy pushback of Lex Luthor just to show how much of an asshole he truly is by burning down a portion of the hospital wing that had to deal with children. I'm assuming he killed a bunch of children in that process, with Otis helping set those fires and trying to turn things around on Lena a little bit, right? Trying to put more pressure on her. I believe Lex even says like the DA is coming for her or whatever the case may be. So Lex Luthor's always trying to certainly get his sister, but we clearly see his sister trying to play just as dirty as he certainly is. But so for me to be able to see what Lena was able to do in regards to not only helping save the day in this episode, but just realizing just the toxicity that having Lex Luthor around in your life causes. You know what I mean? I mean, we've seen this back and forth between brother and sister for how many seasons now? So the fact that Lena finally understands the idea that, you know what, I'm just not even gonna respond to you anymore. Like, I'm just not even gonna push back. So I love the decision in here by the showrunner to have her leave LexCorp. This really feels very much like Lena trying to branch off on her own, do something for herself, and she's in a much better place mentally now than she certainly was. And in order to get your mind right, you got to get toxic people out of your life. And so the fact that she's done that by leaving LexCorp and Lex Luthor behind, I think this is a really great decision on her part. Now, whether or not Lex decides to still continue to go after his sister, we'll definitely have to go and see. But one of the lines that I really enjoyed in this week's episode, let me see if I think I left where did I put my phone? Hold on one second. I wrote this down in my notes. The line and quote that Lena mentions to Lex Luthor, the idea, she says, "I do hate you. I just love me more." And when she said that, I was like, amen, right? You got to love yourself. You got to know what your worth is, what your value is. And somebody like Lex Luthor just continues to take advantage of that when it comes to Lena Luthor, who has always kind of had this self-confidence issue, or maybe not fully believing in herself and relying too much on other people to kind of boost her self-esteem and congratulate her on things that she accomplishes in her life, sort of thing, right? She really relied on her family for that a lot, it seems like, and just really unhealthily. So the fact that she says, "I do hate you, I just love me more," just really goes to show you the growth of Lena Luthor, and really the importance of what Kara has certainly shown her, along with the rest of the Superfriends up in the tower. But for me, the person that stole this episode was Jesse Rath, who played Brainiac 5. I've mentioned him several times in this when we've talked about this series, especially when it comes to just the emotional aspects of Brainiac. We don't really get the opportunity to see that very much, just because of his previous emotional inhibitors and things like that. But I feel like ever since they've been dropped, we've seen definitely different sides of Brainiac that Jesse Rath is just able to portray incredibly well. And the fact that we get to see just the anger that Brainiac has really kept inside and built up for Lex Luthor over the past season or so is incredibly immense. And I love the way that Jesse Rath just expresses his emotions, from the screaming to, I mean, you could just feel it in his body, just that guttural scream, and just the look on his face, the tears welling up. I mean, he wants to kill Lex Luthor, man, and I love that. It's probably one of my favorite scenes in here, is seeing him and Lena talk about possibly killing Lex Luthor, and then really coming to their senses, like, we can't go down this path. You know what I mean? I love the fact also that Lena brings back the little box metaphor, because I do believe if it wasn't last season, it might have been the season prior, the idea of Brainiac and her having a conversation of how do you deal with your emotions, you know what I mean? Him trying to get used to not having his inhibitor and things like that. And I do remember the advice that she wound up giving him about, you know, when you're feeling something you don't want to feel, sometimes you got to put it in those little boxes and just kind of put it to the back of your mind, if you will, and kind of push yourself forward whereas now you see Lena understanding that just putting your feelings in the box and throwing them to the side just means that you're not confronting them, right? That you're not dealing with them sort of head on, if you will, that you have to embrace these feelings as much as we certainly don't want to, or it's just going to burden us for the remainder of our lives and make us feel and come to this point that Brainiac certainly is at. So I love the fact that Lena understands that now, that it's like we may not want to feel these feelings, we may not want to actually have to deal with them, but we need to, and that's the only way that we're ever going to get past anything in our lives, to be able to move on and feel complete once again. And so I could definitely understand where Brainiac's coming from, though. I mean, it always seems as though Lex was one step ahead of him last season, right? He did a lot of things that he certainly was not thrilled about, put a lot of his friends in danger. He clearly still blames himself for what happened to Kara, right? Had he maybe not teamed up with Lex Luthor, it wouldn't have gotten to that point that it certainly did. And so maybe Kara would certainly still be here, but again, showcasing to us the grief and the ramifications of not having Kara Danvers around, and really how it's affecting the entire group. And so this was just that type of episode to really show, because even Brainiac says, I miss her, you know, like I truly miss her. And he's definitely not talking about Nia in here. I mean, Nia's just on a trip, you know, with Andreas for Catco and things like that. He's definitely talking about Kara, but you get to see just how much that hope of Kara Danvers means to everybody else, and really how it keeps everybody afloat through the entire season, especially when it comes to handling their emotions and things like that. You need that type of role model and inspiration around, and so we really do see just what the void left behind by Supergirl truly means to this group. But Jesse Raff just blew it out of the water for me, man. I absolutely loved the moments that we wind up getting in here. Let's see here. A couple other things. You know, I did not know how I was going to feel about the Alex and Kelly relationship when it certainly first began. But I've really come to love those two relationships. For me, it's just one of those things where I like seeing Alex have somebody that she can rely on and depend on to give her some really great advice. And Kelly seems to always be there for her, right? This isn't the first time that Kelly has had to be there for her. We saw her having to deal with the passing of her father last season. Also, the one person that was there to kind of talk some sense into her certainly was Kelly. So the fact that even Alex recognizes just what Kelly means to her, and you know, asking her to move in to take that sort of really big next step for her, I think is really great for the Alex character. I feel like Alex is kind of been in that trajectory for quite some time, right? We saw her fall in love with the police officer in the past, to the point to where maybe even starting a family and having a kid, and unfortunately that wind up kind of getting shut down for her, and they just kind of moved on to something else for Alex Danvers. But to be able to see her find love again and to be happy and to have somebody that's as reliable as Kelly in here, I've actually really grown to appreciate Kelly as part of this team and part of this cast, and I think they've been doing a really great job in keeping each other afloat for sure. So I really loved all the Alex and Kelly stuff that we wind up getting in here. I think it's just a really great balance for the both of them. And one of the other things we got to talk about is, in fact, Kara Danvers, right? We can't forget that even though Supergirl is in fact trapped in the Phantom Zone, she definitely very much has a story certainly going on for herself in here, as we do get to see that her father is in fact kidnapped in this episode, played once again by Jason Behr, who I continue to really enjoy his presence on the show. I think he's incredible. But to see him captured and then Supergirl injure herself, and she winds up running across a brand new mystery character here this week, who comes to reveal themselves as a fifth dimensional Princess Imp, very similar to Mixelplick, or whatever his name is, Mixelplick. I always call him Mixelplick, but I know that's not how you pronounce it. Mixelplick or some shit. I don't know how you pronounce his damn name, honestly. But we do have another imp very similar to him in here, who actually reveals to us that she actually was a princess who was kind of banished to the Phantom Zone based off the fact that she had a father and a king who was the Mad King. Very, very familiar to that. Like, the reference just reminds me of like Game of Thrones and the Targaryens, right? the idea of power just kind of going to your head and you becoming just this crazy ass king, if you will, killing people and things like that. But it seems as though this king wanted to go ahead and hold on to his power. So not only did he kill his son, but he also banished his daughter, the princess, to the Phantom Zone so he can control and have more power to himself, right? If you don't have any heirs, there's nobody to take away your power from you when you get older or you die or whatever the case may be. So you definitely get to see the impact on the princess in here, but there is a mystery about her and still an uncertainty I have. I don't know if I'm just going to go into the Phantom Zone and just completely believe everybody that I see there. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if this person is actually Clitopic or whatever his name is, Mixoplick himself, just in disguise. I mean, they do reference the idea of being in the Phantom Zone, how sometimes you have these memories of a previous life that you didn't live, or memories that you don't feel certainly are your own in a sense. I am wondering if that's a sign that maybe this Princess Imp is not exactly who we think she certainly is, and maybe turns out to be somebody else. I don't know. I just get that weird vibe from her. I don't know if you guys get that vibe from her either at all or not. But I am kind of curious to know what you guys think in regards to this. But they do manage to go ahead and not only save her father, but clearly plan on continuing to push forward instead of settling down. They definitely want to try and find themselves a way out of the Phantom Zone, to say the least. So the adventure continues for Kara Danvers as Supergirl inside the Phantom Zone. So I'm really excited to kind of see what they explore with that going forward. And if the third episode is the charm, in which she actually does get out of the Phantom Zone, which I think would be a really great length of time for Supergirl to not be around the main cast, if you know what I mean. I also really enjoy getting just a little bit more of the background story when it comes to the Phantoms or the Phantom Menaces, as you will, right? Brainiac does some research on them, come to find out that they were previously referred to as Zulon Militarian, another alien race that was forced to flee their world and find a new world to kind of populate. But in order to populate, they wind up turning people into soulless, hive-minded minions, is how Brainiac wind up actually posting that or referencing them, and then also let us know that the Kryptonians wind up stopping them and actually put them into the Phantom Zone. And so the Phantom Zone, I think he said, diluted their abilities, so they were only really able to kind of have people experience like different levels of misery when they're inside the Phantom Zone. But once they're free, they clearly get their powers back and they're able to infect people once again, which we get to see here. Silas unfortunately winds up getting turned. A couple of other people in National City get turned, who I believe the tower now has them captured. They haven't killed them, but they're capturing them in the sense of hopefully maybe turning them back to themselves. And we get to see that close call in here from Magan, almost not making it throughout this episode, but continuing just to show the growth between Magan and John, just that continued bond that they have. I love the fact that she's like, I'm glad I left my soul with somebody, right? She was like, I knew you were a good catch, John Jones. Like, the fact that if there's anybody reliable out there that you could put your soul with, just in case if situations like this occur, right? Somebody you can definitely count on, the Martian Manhunter for sure. So I really do continue to enjoy their camaraderie and their chemistry together, and it just feels like love is in the air, almost like everybody on this show is finding love and finally settling down to some sense, right? John and Magan, you've got Brainiac and Dreamer, you've got Alex and Kelly. The only two people that really haven't showcased any sort of love or connection yet is Supergirl and Lena. I don't think Lena's probably going to find a boyfriend by the end of the 6th season. I think she's definitely going to be focusing on herself, to say the least. But we'll see what happens with Supergirl and perhaps William, Mr. Perfect. I don't know. We'll definitely see what happens. Or who knows? Maybe William and Nia, now that they're on this trip with Andreas for Kako, maybe something emerges between them. Nah, I think Nia is definitely in with Brainy for sure. So I think the really big question mark is Mr. Perfect William gonna end with the perfect heroine in Supergirl by the end of the season? We'll definitely have to see, guys. But other than that, these are just simply my A+ opinions. I definitely want to know what you guys think, though. I definitely really enjoyed this episode. I certainly hope you guys did. If you did or if you didn't, though, let me know your thoughts thoughts about this week's episode in the live chat or the comment section box below, ladies and gentlemen. But other than that, I think that's going to do it for us here. But we certainly will be back next week with a brand new review for Supergirl. So definitely look out for that. But in the meantime, guys, do us a big favor. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. And as always, keep it A+. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.